My point being is, if you're a commercial builder and you got somebody calling you residential, if you have a buddy that you recommend, send them that way. And hopefully, if he gets a commercial product, he can send it to you. And that's a way to go. That solves the problem and gives a salesman an answer. He doesn't feel like he's being dumb and being mean. It's like, hey, no, man, this isn't what we do. We'll talk to so and so over here. They're really good at it in your area and so forth. And we recommend it. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. And same to you, Kevin Balmeri. This is Chris G here at the Hard Hat the CEO, and we're going to have us another discussion today. What would you like to talk about, Kevin?
I was thinking of, as a business owner who has tried to figure out how much does this cost and what are we charging for this and how do we make all these numbers work? I was thinking an episode on the best practices for bidding when it comes to jobs would be a good one to do today.
Sure, we can talk about that. Oh, really, you got to decide. It's a little different for everybody. I don't mean that facetiously. I mean it by the fact that depends on how big of a company you are and how many people you have doing certain tasks. So a salesman can also be the estimator and the guy on the site. I mean, he could be everything. He's a small enough company. If you're a medium-sized company, I'd like to have a salesman, and then I like to have an estimator. And the estimator knows the details of how something's done, in this case, how something's built, and they can figure out the time and the cost and materials and so forth. But the salesman's the one who's in charge, and he has to have an idea too, or she, but they have to be able to communicate that back to the estimator, be a form or something standardized that they can fill out, that they fill out every time, and the estimator understands what they're talking about. So the estimator can take it, generate the numbers, and give that back to the salesman to present to the client. And that's kind of the gist of it. And, sometimes you might have the estimator join you, depending on what kind of setup you have and so forth. And again, it could be you doing everything. But
okay,
that's the real deal. It's important, though, and it depends on the project. So you got to get your eyes on the site, whether the salesman go look at it or the estimator, the project manager, however you got your company designed. You need to see what you're working with. Sometimes it'll be pictures. I've done it with those. I worked at a company a long time ago, and we just took lots of pictures. And with digital today, it's easy. You just take pictures and pictures. You think you don't have enough, take more. And it's easy. It's not that hard once you get the view of it and see what you're going on. And it's like, okay, well, you're going to have this, you're going to have that. You're going to have some more dirt to move and so forth. If it's a really big project, then I definitely probably recommend going and seeing it. A lot of roofers these days and asphalt companies and other types of companies like that can get dimensions. There's software out there that can get you dimensions of the roof or dimensions of the lot or how many feet. They don't have to go and measure anymore if they don't want to. So it really depends on what your market is and what you're trying to do and how much money, how big of a project does it work to get. So if it's a huge project, take a little time, go out there and look at it, make sure you got all your bases. Know where you're at as far as that goes.
Let me ask you a question. The multi-part question. Is there an algorithm to figure out however you have it set,
right,
where you're trying to figure out what the margin you're looking to get is in terms of net revenue?
That's an independent question for each customer. What do you want? And what's the market going to bear? I mean, in some ways, our job is to keep it within market value. So if something's supposed to cost $10,000 on average, if you want to be at $10,000, that's great. If you want to be at $12,000, that's great, and be able to sell the difference. Or below, I don't like going below because there's too much. In some cases, if there's a lot of competition, you might end up unprofitable, and that's not a good situation anyway. So you just kind of spin your wheels. You can actually Google that stuff too these days. What's a contractor? What's a roofer? Whatever it is, what's the standard markup can you expect? It's your job as a owner, production manager, whatever you call yourself, is to make sure that you can do it below the market price profitably. So if if you can find the market and it's going to bear 10,000 and you can do it for 8 or even 5, more power to you. I mean, that's what's important.
Okay.
But there's also, I got my notes here, you got to compare apples to apples. Make sure that your customer is comparing your numbers and what you're providing to somebody else's into the same thing. You might come up higher just because you did something different, and they're not even comparing it to somebody who did something a lot less. And you got to watch your salesman too. And what I mean by that is not always does the client know what they want. So, I mean, on big projects, they'll probably have an architect and an engineer. So the architect's job is to put the client's vision on paper. The engineers then takes that architect drawing and makes it built properly. The architect's just for design. The engineer makes it sure it's all safe and sound. And it's your job to make that vision a reality physically. Well, not everybody has that. And usually that's all hashed out in architect and engineer. But if you're dealing with a customer that has never seen it, an architect, or all they got is just a plan they bought online.
Mm.
Well, you might have better suggestions for them because they're selling those plans generically to anybody and everybody. And you might want something that's a little bit different, unique. And the salesman might have a great idea on how to make that happen. You got to make sure that's very specific on your bid. That way they can say, oh, well, this is what I asked for, but here's a suggestion that might make it better, and here's what it cost, or save. Either way. Sometimes it's better. You can save a customer money and still make more by doing it more efficiently.
Mm.
You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you can find something that, ooh, if I could do it this way, it'd be much faster for me. It'd be cheaper for them, or less materials, or whatever it is, and say, okay, we'll split some of that with you. Keep a little more in your pocket, but it gives them a reason to want to make that switch. Especially you can explain it to them, and they're able to understand what you're talking about. So
Okay.
those are the good ones. All right. So what's the
Follow
next
up.
part of your question? Okay.
Now you got me in a different place completely. I'm all over the place today. Okay. What advice would you give to somebody who is they're everything? They're the salesperson, they're the estimator, they're everybody at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
What sales advice would you give to them? Because I'm sure the sales and the way that you set it up is going to make a drastic difference in your ability to get
Well,
jobs.
you got to understand what they're trying to achieve. You asked before we started here, we asked me if I got any new jobs going on. Well, my crew started a very fancy horse equine center, stables, whatever you want to call it. And she has some very particular things that she wants in this. She dreamed it. She's a veterinarian today. She goes, I went to school to be a veterinarian for horses and everything. And this is my dream stables. And I said, if that's what you want, we're going to do it. We got to make sure it's done right. And we got to make sure it's done, I won't say efficiency, yes, but built strongly so it'll pass codes and everything. And so she already had an architect involved. We got an engineer involved, and we just had the plans. Now that's a different strategy, different category, because I'm given plans and then I kind of go through them with the engineer and so forth. On the other case, if you're just somebody just wanting to build something, and so they either bought plans, don't have plans at all, provide them with the plans. Somebody can do plans for them that you like, that you know does a good job. You can give them, say, here, contact this person, or help them in the meantime make the plans themselves. So you're, I don't want to say getting in bed with them, but you're holding their hands so they can plan on it. Now you got me all over the place too. I just I had a guy the other day, or not the other day, this has been a couple months ago, and he doesn't know what he wants necessarily. So he gave me a chicken scratch. And I said, I get to the sales guy, I said, go talk to the planner and let's come back. And we're not even done yet. But now he's talking like you're getting the job. I mean, he didn't say it that way, but here's what he said. I'm going to get you in contact with so-and-so. We're putting in my pool. Okay, well, I don't need to talk to the pool guy unless I got the job. And I know I got the job. I just haven't given him numbers yet. So meaning that if you help them out, they're going to become more reliant on you, especially if they don't know exactly what they want. And then you're just going to have that ability. Even if you come in, say a couple thousand more than what your competitors are, you've helped them get to this point.
Hmm.
And all that couple $1,000 doing is just verifying that they picked the right person and you're not gouging them.
Okay. All right.
So that is important, I think, for a one-time person. And we have as you've heard, and if you've ever listened to these past podcasts, I'm big on communication. Just communicate. And that makes a big difference, even in the bidding process. Because, hey, here's what I'm waiting on, or here's what we're doing. But you don't want them to think you forgot about them.
Yeah.
And some of these projects take a while to get bids. It's can be complicated. as far as just getting this organized and waiting for numbers from this person and this person. So I'm putting them all together in one package. So just a little communication. Hey, I'm waiting on this. And, you should have it by then, and so on and so forth. And it just makes them feel better. You haven't forgot about them and you're still working with them.
Okay. Outside of price, what are some of the other objections that people will give when you're bidding jobs?
Schedule, can't get to it fast enough. And then I think always it's easy as well. If I wasn't busy, then I'm probably not doing a very good job at my construction company. Look at all these other ones. Have you contacted? Yeah, you're right. And you want to see what we're doing now? Just show them. Take them for a ride. Say, hey, you got time today or this weekend? We'll just go. I'll go show you a place we're doing. And they get to understand you. I'm willing to wait for that type of quality. Schedule's one, money's the other one. That's a good question.
Anything else?
That's the other two.
What if
none I can
people
think of.
have you ever heard stories of people that they had the right price, the schedule was on, they just didn't like the person? They just didn't resonate with the person who was going to be doing the work?
Oh, absolutely. That don't usually happen to the right when it starts, really. And sometimes, depending on how big of a company you're doing, if you have more than one crew, just switch crews. If you have now, hopefully they like their salesperson because that's the one that got them to this point. But in that case, you just make the salesperson the contact. Say, hey, contact so and so. He'll take care of everything. Now, that's how I do it. If I'm in charge, but hopefully I got a project manager. I tell them to do the same thing. Hey, you be the one to contact or whatever. They're not getting along with the working foreman on site, and you don't only have one working foreman, so there's no reason to. Then you be the communicator between the two. It might be easier. Whatever it is, you just make it, and that can happen. Now, hopefully not a lot, because if you got good crews and they know what they're doing, they're following the plans, they really won't have a lot of communication with the end buyer.
Yeah.
And that's, when I say that, that's the idea. But sometimes if you ever did residential homes, people want to see what they're doing. They want to see their house being built, and they'll show up and just want to watch and say, why are you doing it that way? And why are you doing it this way? And it can slow the people down. Your salesman needs to be, if it really is a problem, your salesman needs to be proactive. Get with the clients and say, hey, we're trying to get this in get your job done efficiently and timely, because your banks want, whatever it is, it's costing you money the longer we're here. And really, it's costing you and them money. It's costing them money in interest if they got a loan. It costs you money in time if you're not getting something done. So there's a lot of different ways. You got basically be proactive in the situation and figure out what's going on.
Okay.
They'll have the salesman will have there's a talking about, we ought to have a meeting before, and we're going to talk about that in future episodes, but they ought to have a meeting, your salesman or your estimator and your crews or your project manager, however you got your company aligned, to have an idea what's going on. And they'll have an idea. I mean, the salesman's going to know how needy that client is and what to expect. So those things could be brought up at that point before the job starts.
Does that factor into coming up with? But yeah, if somebody has a lot of potential neediness, does that affect
it? It very well can. And actually, it probably should to some extent. I don't mean that really like or anything, but it's going to cost somebody some time to ride, what they call it, gunshot, or you're actually watching people, and be interference. And that's not on everybody, but sometimes it does. You might decide, and that's being probably the future. You might decide that that's not the job for you and be willing to turn stuff down. Not the conversation with your salesman, because if you're too far along, I mean, it's one thing. If you're in that, talking about estimating, this is important too. You want to make sure that they're bidding what you want as a company. What I mean by that is, let's say that you focus on commercial buildings. Well, you don't want your salesman going out and selling residential homes,
right, and
vice versa. So that's one way. And he might be a great salesman of residential homes, but if your company's not good at building them, it don't make any sense. With that being said, that they also have be able to say no. This doesn't fit us. We're not the right company for you. I read a book on Neiman Marcus in high school, and one of his biggest claims to fame, they're a big store. I don't know if you know Neiman Marcus or not, but big department store. And during Christmas time, that's how they got it started. That if they didn't have something, their customer service would provide a name or a place to go find that product. And my point being is, if you're a commercial builder and you got somebody calling you residential, if you have a buddy that you recommend, send them that way. and hopefully that guy will replicate. If he gets a commercial product, he can send it to you, and that's a way to go. That solves the problem and gives a salesman an answer. He doesn't feel like he's being dumb and being mean. It's like, hey, no, man, this isn't what we do. We'll talk to so and so over here. They're really good at it in your area and so forth, and we recommend them.
I have another idea for a future episode. I'm guessing that the Neiman Marcus thing, I think, wasn't that from a Jim Collins book, I believe?
Well,
Jim
this
Collins?
one, oh no, well, he did have, yes, Jim Collins did have it. No, I'm talking, this is even before Jim Collins even wrote books back in high school. This was a Neiman Marcus, like a bio on Neiman Marcus,
Okay.
and I did a paper on them. And it's yeah, but everybody refers back to Neiman Marcus as a customer service side of things.
Got a heck of a memory. You remember what you did on a book
Well,
report.
it was, well, it was a whole, it wasn't more of a report, it's a whole damn paper, basically. Anyway, we had to write about, it was basically on customer service. And that was a pretty influential book on me on, just giving people information, making them happy.
I think that's a future episode, the top 5 books, top 5 book recommendations.
Okay.
We could do in the future.
Sure.
Because I'm sure there's a lot of gems that you've read over the years.
There are a lot of gems and everything. And you just got to find them and kind of be able to put them. Well, in this case, Neiman Marcus is about department stores. Well, how can, if you're reading this book, how can something in a different industry work in yours?
Yes.
And be able to make that transition. That's what's important.
100%. All right, let's get back on bidding.
Bidding?
Anything we didn't touch on that we should?
I recommend getting another pair of eyes on it before you send it out. Actually, I got 2 more things. So somebody checking it, just walk. I mean, it depends on how big it is. Don't get me wrong. And you can make mistakes on small projects just to make you make big ones. But just, especially if you have an estimator and a salesperson, have the salesman look it over first before the estimator goes through the process of finalizing it. It's like, yeah, this is, or go have them both communicate, whatever it is. It might be that's not realistic. Maybe you have 2 estimators, have one estimator check the other. That's one. There's a lot of softwares out there now that do estimating for you. And so maybe it's not necessarily checking the estimate itself, but checking the entry. So if you entered in, so it's been 100 and you only entered 10, then that's a typo and you want to look for that. And you might not notice that until it's too late. The other part is, and it depends on the size of your company, is the presentation to the client. You're going to put it in a folder, a notebook, just an email. How do you communicate that to the client? And it depends on the value of your products and how you want your company to be perceived. But that's important too, I think.
Any tips on that? What have your experiences been?
Well, it does really. When I say it matters on. Well, it could matter on the competition and the fact that just setting yourself apart. See what other people do and you do something better, one step above or whatever it is. Maybe a little book on, let's see here. If you're doing residential, how do you know your contractor's a good contractor? Give them a little extra information in their little folder with your business card or whatever. You could include, I've done this before, we included the free stuff, something that they, pins, and people like that free stuff for one thing, and it always keeps them in mind. What else? Coffee mugs. I mean, something that would be creative, and we probably think about this for a while, but something creative that, you can use on your house, and there are things at the end that are really special that you could do. But this one's, I mean, that's kind of later in the game, but like, housewarming gift or something to that effect. A ribbon cutting ceremony or something to that effect for commercial. Or what else have we done? The free stuff, the nice packaging, typed up, not handwritten. I see
Makes
some
sense.
handwritten ones. I've seen them. Guy's right there in his truck, and he's writing it up, and he tears out the old piece of paper and hands it to the customer, and that type of stuff. You can include pictures of the plan, pictures of the site, knowing that you spent some time collecting this all. I saw a commercial on YouTube the other day of I guess it's a siding company, And all they got to do is take pictures of the siding. The computer estimates and does all the measurements and so forth and spits out a really nice presentation. And the other guy's like, well, it took me several days to do it. No. So that's important. Speed, speed is another one. People want to know. And I've talked about that before, but communication, but really they want to be able to get their hands on it. So even though I know it can take a while, the faster you can get it to them, sometimes the better. Now there could be an argument. Do I want to be the first one to them? I don't know. It really depends on the customer itself. And I don't think that's a real safe way to do it. I think as a company, you might decide how you want your procedure to work. As far as, I want mine to be the first, or, X amount of days. So your salesman can say, hey, I'm going to have your bid to you in 5 days. Boom. And they just know it's expected. And if I can hit my schedule based on my estimate, how much better are we going to do in building your house?
Yeah.
So that type of stuff.
Okay. All right. What is the one hard hat to CEO tip of the day to take away? So just one that somebody listening can take and practice today. I'll put you on pressure.
That's all right. Make a checklist. Whether if you're the one doing the estimating, create a form so that, and always add it to it. Always check it. Change it around if necessary. That way, if you ever expand your company, when you do expand your company, you can train somebody to do the estimating too. You can also, it becomes a form. You can give that to your salesman to fill out. And then that form can get copied or however you want to do it digitally. I like to recommend digitally because it's a lot easier, and then can be sent over to the next person in line, your estimator, or it might be you, your salesman, and you're still estimating. You want to be able to communicate it with what you got to do, and you do the numbers, be able to get back to your salesperson.
Okay.
But do a form, I say a form. What's the word I'm looking for? Customize, or make sure everything's repeatable. That way, communication's all the same, and your terminology is the same, and everybody knows what you're talking about. All right.
Okay, I dig it.
So, that being said, if you guys have heard anything we talked about today, and you're interested in talking further, in the show notes, I got my little link to my calendar, and we can set up an appointment and have further discussions on how you can do bidding or anything else for that matter. Also, if you'd like to attend, in the show notes, there's a link to my workshop, and go in there and apply, and we'll get that going. Kevin, thank you for today.
Chris G, always.
All right. You all have a wonderful day. This is Chris G, and Hard Hat, the CEO. Bye-bye.